Hello everyone, and welcome to RailsConf University. We're very thankful that you're here today. We know you have a lot of choices in your MBA programs, right? A lot of them are executive MBA programs where you can continue working and also complete your studies. And during those programs, you'll learn about things like finance and accounting, marketing, strategy, and operations. Those are things that we're not going to teach here at RailsConf University. See, our program isn't an executive MBA program at all. Instead, it's an accelerated MBA program. The way our program is structured is that you give us roughly 30 minutes, and we give you a degree. So now, how are we able to do that? Well, we do that by tailoring our content to very specifically target the needs of a software developer. So we're going to talk about 3 different courses out of an MBA curriculum that have a benefit to a software developer's day-to-day work. My name is Kevin Murphy. I'm going to be your not actually a professor today. And these programs work well in cooperation with corporate partnership, and we thank the NAR company for their support. They're a software consultancy based out of Boston, Massachusetts. So for each of these courses, let's talk about how they're going to be organized. We're going to start by having a lecture component. Then we're going to move directly into our final exam, and we're going to wrap up by talking about our capstone project. Now, all of our capstone projects are going to be the same thing, but highly individualized. We're going to be talking about how this applies to your career. So let's put 30 minutes on the clock and get started. Our first topic is situational leadership. Situational leadership is a model that proposes that there are 4 different styles of leadership. And we're going to discuss what each of those styles are. And while we're doing that, I want you to consider how this could be useful in sprint planning for you. So the first leadership style in the situational leadership model is called directing. And in that style, the leader is responsible for close, detailed supervision, clearly laying out acceptance criteria and building a checklist of here are exactly the steps you need to follow to be successful. The part the team plays in the directing style is faithfully executing on that plan. The next style is coaching. And in coaching, the leader is still making the decisions. However, they're spending more time providing more background and context and giving more information about why we're doing things a certain way, why we're doing them at all, how this came to be. Right? And the team is asked to provide input in how the task is going, right? What ways can we tailor this to be specific, to have benefits for the particular team? Okay. The next style is supporting. And in supporting, the role of decision maker flips. Now it's the team that's responsible for making all of the choices and how this task is going to be performed. And as such, the role of the leader changes drastically. Now they're in a position where their role is to facilitate conversations amongst people and making sure that everyone knows the right folks to contact, getting them in touch with them, keeping up to date with everyone, and encouraging the team to ensure that they do have the authority to make these decisions, they're doing a great job, and they should come to you with any questions or concerns that they have. So we're now putting them in a position to be empowered to make choices. The last leadership style is delegating. And in the delegating style, the team has full autonomy over the day-to-day actions. And the leader, it's not so much that they're checked out, but they don't need to follow up on every single decision and every single task that's done. They can spend their time focusing on the overall vision of the organization or the team, whatever the scope is of the thing that they lead. So, now that we're all experts in the 4 leadership styles in situational leadership, it's time for our final exam. The way final exams are going to work is I'm going to ask you one question. I'm going to give you a minute to think about it, and then we're going to discuss our answer. Okay. So our final exam for situational leadership is, what is the best leadership style? Again, I'll give you a minute to think about that. Okay, everyone, let's come together. So what is the best leadership style? It depends. And the people that developed the situational leadership model explicitly agree with that by saying that situational leadership is about choosing the right leadership style for the right people. Okay. For a leader to be successful, they need to be able to exhibit all of these different styles at different times. If a leader only models one of these styles, sure, they may be successful, but only in very particular situations with very particular people performing a very particular task. It's not general purpose. So instead, the challenge becomes, how do we know which style of leadership to use in the scenario that we're in? And luckily, the people that built out the framework also propose a solution here, where they recommend evaluating the situation across two axes, which is how much help that the team or the individual needs in driving out the actual tasks that need to be done, and how much help they need in establishing relationship behavior, or how much emotional support or social support do they need to be able to succeed in the task. Okay. When someone just needs a lot of help to know, what is this I even need to be doing? And it doesn't matter to me about the history of this or where this came from or how we can make it better. Well, that's when the directing style should kick in, right? And the leader can provide clear instructions and somewhat steer them towards just focusing in tunnel vision on the actual task at hand. Okay. That can work really well in situations where the person just needs to have an understanding of what the task is. But we can't overuse it because we don't want it to turn into micromanaging. Right? Instead, as the person becomes more familiar with what the task is itself, we want to introduce more of the context to them. Right? We're going to give more social context of how this came to be, what the history is, why we do this a certain way. And we're going to use the coaching style to help with us. Right? We're still going to be, as the leader, making the decisions and assisting the person by taking that burden off of their hands. But we're going to be inviting them in to give more information and give some of their input for, how do you think we can make this work best? Once we don't need to assist the person anymore with the actual work output, then we can move into a supporting role, where the focus is purely on those social and emotional aspects. Okay, who are the people you need to be in touch with to be able to make the right decisions here? Have you done that? How is that going? Here's how we can navigate those political conversations. Right? And just checking in and making sure that the person's feeling good about the decisions that they're making and that they feel empowered to do that as well. And lastly, if there's not much of anything that an individual needs, well, then we move into the delegating style, where the goal is to just get out of people's way. So now, you might have been listening to this whole section and been thinking, I'm not a team lead, I'm not a manager, I don't have any leadership responsibility, why do I care about any of this? And well, at the very least, if you're truly not a manager and never leading anything, then you have managers and leaders, and knowing about this model can help you manage up, to help you tell your leadership team how you need to best be supported in a particular situation. But also, I would argue where there are situations where all of us can exhibit leadership qualities. Leadership is something that is not only done by folks that are bestowed a formal title. And one situation where everyone can exhibit some leadership qualities and use the situational leadership model is in sprint planning. So let's say every 1 or 2 weeks, the team all gets together and talks about the work that they're going to commit to over the next however long. And maybe you even assign some work out, and then throughout the sprint, you have check-ins and scrums and stand-ups, whatever you call them, where you talk about progress and who's working on what and what are their challenges. And as you're going through that process, identifying where people fall in terms of how much task help and relationship help they need can help you understand how much support to give them or how much support you need yourself. So if you're on a task and you're given a ticket and you're not really sure at all what's going on with it, well, then the directing style is going to be beneficial, where you want to make sure that there is clear, identified instructions for here is exactly what we need to do to be successful here. Right? Here are the very well-defined acceptance criteria that will tell us we have achieved the goal of this ticket. This is also an important opportunity to make sure that there is someone else either explicitly assigned to the ticket or explicitly mentioned as a point person that the person who's assigned to this work can go to ask any questions, work together with, and pair on work with. If there's another ticket where it sounds like there's a vague idea of what's going on here, well, the coaching style may be helpful here. Or maybe it's a conversation of, hey, we did something really similar to this a couple of weeks ago. Let's talk after this meeting, and we'll sit down and we'll work together to talk about how that came to be, how that works, and we'll talk about how it's applicable to the work you're doing right now. Here are the things we might change. Here's how it's similar. And laying that foundation and then giving the person some flexibility in how they actually complete that work. If it's something that's very familiar with them, then we can move into a supporting role where we want to empower them to make the decisions and how this work is going to get done. So we want to make sure that we give them an opportunity to get in front of stakeholders, even if it's just the internal team, to talk about, here's how I'm proposing we get this work done, here's why it matters, here's the impact, what does everyone think about that, are we all on the same page? And lastly, if this is something that the person does every week or every so often, it's just like, okay, yep, just go ahead and do it. Right? We're going to delegate that work to you and we're going to get out of your way. But also, if you're the person assigned to this work and you recognize that you're in this bucket of this need of leadership or lack thereof, or if you identify someone who is, this is a great opportunity to suggest or recommend that someone else be added to this ticket as well, so that they can learn about the process or the work that's being done here. Maybe it's a completely unfamiliar area of the code base for someone else, and that's a great opportunity to bring them in, assuming it's not like a time-sensitive or an emergency situation, to learn about this. Because this person that's assigned this ticket doesn't need the help. They're assigned to it because they're already experts in it. But we want to make sure that we're moving everyone towards having a better understanding on how the organization works and how the actual product works. Okay. So with that, folks, we've completed our first of 3 courses, Situational Leadership. Congratulations. But we're moving right along. We're going to move into our next topic, which is competitive advantage. Competitive advantage is the way by which our company or organization will achieve success in the marketplace. And as we're talking about competitive advantage, I want you to think about how it can help answer the question, should we build this feature ourselves? We're going to talk about competitive advantage by way of an example. And that example is going to be a blog. Let's build a blogging platform. And we're going to want people to pay us money for that blog. And now if you don't have a blog, that's fine. This is RailsConf. Let's just take 15 minutes. You can build a blog, come right back. Pause this video. Don't worry, I'll wait. All right, so we're all back. We have our blog, and now we want people to pay us money for it. Right? So in competitive advantage, there are 3 generic strategies we can use to try to gain some market share. Okay, so let's talk about 3 of them today. The first is cost. And the cost strategy means being able to provide this more cheaply than others in the marketplace. It's easy to say, and it's easy to suggest, but it's difficult to do effectively because in order to do this and still run a business, you still need to make money, which means not only do you need to provide this cheaper, but you also need to get some benefit out of that. So how can you do that? Well, you need to do that by being more efficient than the rest of the market across some dimension. You might be able to do that by having better people, or having access to special technology, or just having certain access to different materials that means that you can then pass those savings off to the customer. So if you're a jeweler and you also happen to own a gold mine, you might be able to offer your jewelry cheaper because you don't have to pay for the costs of getting gold from someone else because you're literally sitting on a gold mine. If you're a blogging platform and you just got a big round of VC funding, maybe you can afford to offer your product or service for a lot cheaper for some period of time to try to gain some market share. This is going to be a difficult one to do in the blogging space because we have free options for blogging. So I guess you could pay people to blog, but it's probably not very sustainable. Which also speaks to the danger of the cost strategy, right? You need to make sure that you don't suddenly become involved in a race to the bottom of everyone continually dropping their prices as everyone's trying to use the cost strategy here. It's also possible, but very difficult to use this strategy over the long term and maintain your competitive advantage in the cost department. So we have other strategies we can use if we want. The second is a differentiation strategy. And in differentiation, we're doing something differently or uniquely that customers place a value on. So this could just mean that our product is better. It might mean that we have some feature that other products in the market don't have. Maybe we're the first to market, we're the only player, or maybe we just do a better job of more quickly turning around the output of whatever it is that we provide. We might not have a better product at all. In fact, it might be worse. But instead, we just have really good marketing and everyone knows about us. So for our blogging example, that might mean that we have some concierge service where we offer to move in everyone's content that they have on other systems into our system, and we handcraft that process. And we have one-on-one conversations with new customers to help teach them exactly how to use the ins and outs of our platform. And we even agree to write the first 5 blog posts for them. Right? There might be no one else that's willing to do that. But if we are, some folks might be willing to pay money for that and use our product as a result. The last strategy we're going to talk about today is a focus strategy. And in a focus strategy, it's all about finding a very specific niche, developing a product that targets that market segment, and specifically only serving their needs. Okay. So let's say that we want to be the preeminent place for people in the healthcare space to blog. Okay. As a result, we might build out a feature that's a comment moderation system that has some automation in it that flags potential HIPAA violations and doesn't display them on the website until it goes through some review process. Now, a sports blogger might not care very much about that, but someone in the healthcare space, that could sound pretty important. Sports bloggers may use our platform for other reasons, and that's fine, but we're not going to start developing features about putting a ticker at the top of the page that has the scores from yesterday. That's not our market. We're focusing on the healthcare space. Okay. So given that we know everything there is to know about competitive advantage strategies now, in just a few short minutes, we're on to our final exam. Again, it is one question, and that question is, which strategy will bring long-term success? The answer again is that it depends. It depends not only on the market, what other competitors are doing, random chance, but it also depends on what you're good at. What are your organization's core competencies? And to be a core competency, something needs to exhibit the following 3 criteria. It needs to provide access to various markets. Right? So a lot of different people need to be interested in whatever this is. It also needs to have a perceived customer benefit. I always appreciate the keyword perceived, or it doesn't actually have to be better. You just need to convince people that it is. And lastly, it also needs to be really tough for other people to duplicate this. Okay. So what does all this matter to us? Well, I asked you at the beginning of this section to consider how we can use this information to answer the question, should we build this feature ourselves? Which is something that as developers we encounter quite a bit. And so let's talk about a couple of features on our blogging platform and discuss how we can use competitive advantage and core competency to answer this question. And first, let's go back to our HIPAA comment moderation system. So it seems like something that a lot of different people would be interested in. Right? Doctors' offices, insurance companies, universities that do medical research, all sorts of places. Those people are probably going to see that this is beneficial to them, right? They don't want to run afoul of HIPAA, so anything they can do to help maintain compliance is going to be valuable to them. And lastly, this sounds like something that would be really hard for others to stand up really quickly and do well. So it sounds like this could be a core competency for our organization. And as such, we want to make sure that we are building it ourselves. We want to put as much of our time, energy, and effort towards making this as good of a feature as possible. And we want to house all of that knowledge internally so that we maintain all of the information about the ins and outs of how this works. Okay. Let's also consider that we want to build another feature that as comments are added to blogs, we want to email blog post authors to tell them that a new comment was added. Now, this is important, right? We want to drive engagement. We want people to keep coming back to the site, and authors want to know when people are looking at different posts and commenting on them. But we're not in the business of delivering emails. Luckily, other companies are. And so we can benefit from their expertise in exchange for money. We're going to engage in some commerce here. We are going to buy this capability from other companies that do focus on delivering emails. We're going to say to them, you know what? We don't even want to know what SMTP stands for. Never mind how to do it. Instead, we're going to give you some money, and you just make sure our emails go out all the time, and we're good. And that's better for us because we can then devote our internal time and energy and people to focusing on our comment moderation system while still having this email delivery feature. Let's talk about one more feature we want to build. As people are posting comments, we might get a lot of comments on a particular post, and we don't want to load them all on the initial page load because of performance. And so let's say we want to paginate comments. So we only show a certain number per page and someone can click to see other comments. Well, we're not in the business of paginating comments. And it turns out, as far as I know, not a lot of people are. But we do have another lever we can pull, and that is some people very kindly have devoted some time and energy towards building a shared library that will handle this functionality for us. In the Ruby world, this is a gem. Right? So here we can decide to pull in an external dependency to handle this functionality for us. And from an economic standpoint, that makes a lot of sense. Right? We're not planning on being experts in pagination, but we still want pagination in our application. So we will use this external library to handle that feature for us so we still have it in our application without being pagination experts. That allows us to now be an expert in comment moderation for HIPAA violations because we haven't been spending the time building out this pagination functionality. Okay. And with that, we have completed our course on competitive advantage. And we are now moving into our final course today, which is process management. Now, with process management, let's think about how these practices can help us maximize efficiency in our work. We're going to start our topic of process management with a few definitions. The first is the definition of a process itself. Interestingly, if you're a certain kind of person, there are a lot of different definitions of process in the business world. We're going to use one from Dr. Davenport. It says that a process is a structured, measured set of activities designed to produce a specific output. And business process management enables an enterprise to align its business processes to its business strategy. So what does that all mean? Well, I guess in practice what it means is that the Association of Business Process Management, who gave us this quote, and the big four consulting firms and various other technology companies can convince other companies to give them a lot of money to manage their business processes for them. But if we're interested in managing our own business processes, it means following a series of 5 steps. The first step is design. And we are initially starting out process management. The very first beginning of design means to write your current process down. Right? So pull out a blank sheet of paper and start building a flow chart. Right? That clearly defines: customer places an order, someone fills out an order form, it gets sent to a manager for approval. The manager approves it and sends it to the warehouse. The warehouse fulfills the order if it's in stock. They send that to the logistics department, which ships it out to the customer. The customer receives the order. End of process. And then next in the design phase, we want to propose a change that we think will have a beneficial improvement. So maybe we're not going to have managers approve these order forms anymore. They're just going to go directly to the warehouse. That's our proposed change. Well, then we need to find out if that's actually any good. And we can do that through the modeling stage, where we expose our potential design to a bunch of what-if analysis. All right, and we're going to enforce specific constraints on our new process to see how it handles it. Right? So this may mean, okay, so now we're sending our orders directly to the warehouse. How quickly does the warehouse become inundated with all these orders, and now they're spending all of their time managing all this paper and not spending time fulfilling orders? We can do some mathematical modeling to determine what that maximum point would be, or what the potential impact would be to the warehouse team. Okay. But if our modeling checks out, then we move in to actually doing it. Except we don't want to spend a lot of time making this the best process there is right off the bat. We instead want to roll it out in a pilot fashion. Right? We don't want to fully automate this thing that we don't even know will actually work. Right? So in the technology space, this may mean paper prototypes or user interviews rather than spending any time coding whatsoever. Right? Or if we are rolling out a feature, it might mean only exposing it to a certain percentage of traffic on the system so that only certain users see it. Okay. And once we do have that initial execution, we then need to check in on it and monitor its success. And we can do that by tracking different metrics called key performance indicators, or KPIs. And now we may groan at how that term has come into use now, but the fact is we do need something to use to determine, is this thing actually working well? Some generic KPIs in process management are cycle time, which is how long it takes a process to complete, and defect rate, which is what percentage of the time does this thing actually even work. Okay. Now that we're armed with all that data and we've done our improvement to our process, we then move in to optimization. We take in all of that information, we take in that input, and we identify new bottlenecks, and we figure out what are some other changes we need to be focusing on? Not in terms of how we implement them, but what are some areas of focus to move in on, right? Now we need to help the warehouse out because the warehouse is getting all these orders in. And then we move back in through the start of the process. Business process management is a process of continuous improvement. We're cycling through all of these steps. We're never done, but we're always hopefully getting better. So, on to our final exam, where I ask you, for one last time, a question about the topic at hand. And that question is, what is the optimal automation of our business process? Well, as you might have guessed, the answer yet again is that it depends. And let's start to talk about this by way of another quote. It's from Dr. Hammer, who has a somewhat well-known quote in this particular area of interest, which is that automating a mess yields an automated mess. So if we automate some process that's not all that great, sure, it may be a little faster because a computer can do it, or maybe it's just out of sight, out of mind because people aren't handling it, but it's still maybe not all that great. And Dr. Hammer expands upon that with his most popular contribution in the field, which is something known as business process reengineering. For us technology folks, process reengineering is the big rewrite, but rather than rewriting our application in whatever language Hacker News says is cool this week, business process reengineering is the big rewrite of the process. Process reengineering involves blowing up the current process and rebuilding from the ground up. Any sort of assumptions that are built into our current model, we're going to ignore or explicitly question and make sure that they're still valid. We're not going to be as concerned about the current boxes and lines of the process. We're going to be building new boxes and lines, and when we put them onto our process, we're going to make sure that each one of those steps very specifically has a value and a benefit towards the overall goal. Lastly, reengineering came to prominence in the 1990s, and they had this far out there idea that they would leverage technology to help centralize a lot of this information and control, that they would use some shared databases of information that everyone, even across disparate geographies, could use to all have the same level of information. It's an interesting idea, and I hope it worked out for them. But I think we need a little more data first. And so, what does process management and process reengineering mean for us? Well, I asked you to talk about or think about how this might help maximize your efficiency. And the truth is, a lot of us are probably process managers without even thinking about it in those terms. Right? How many of us have a long and carefully curated list of different aliases that we use regularly, right? Or we're constantly on the hunt for the best editor or plugin or different shortcuts we can use to make our lives that much better. Right? Me, I can't be bothered to type out branch every time that I change my branch in Git. So instead I just type out B, and I save myself 5 keystrokes every time. And I look forward when I retire to looking back over my career and thinking about the precious minutes of my life I have saved by making that change. But in order to do that, whether explicitly or implicitly, I followed process management steps to do that, right? Where I identified a change, I rolled it out, I only used it some of the time maybe, I saw how it worked, I made sure that it worked well, and then I moved on to something else that I want to improve, which is now that I've changed to my branch, I need to actually add some work. And how can I do that more quickly? Additionally, a lot of our work involves business processes. Specifically, a lot of the time, we're moving so-called paper processes onto a computer. We're going to automate this. And when we do that, we need to consider if we can take the process as is and apply process management strategies to improve it, or if this paradigm shift is just too great and we need to completely blow it up and re-engineer it. There's one more thing I want you to take from business process reengineering, and in order to explain that, I need to give a bit of a history lesson first. As I mentioned, reengineering came to prominence in the 90s, and the first big public success of reengineering was at Ford, where they reengineered their purchase order process, and as a result were able to reduce headcount involved in that process by 75 to 80%, which is a huge reduction in the number of people. And now what didn't get out there a lot, apparently, is that Ford reassigned those folks to other work. But what people in the business community started hearing is that, hey, this reengineering thing sounds really great. I can save a bunch of money by restructuring my company and laying a bunch of people off. All right, math checks out. And that may have been great for the boardroom or shareholders, but it wasn't all that great for people that work there, or that used to work there. And so the folks that helped bring this to prominence were later on quoted as having mixed feelings about reengineering. It got a bit of a bad reputation, I would argue justifiably. Dr. Davenport, who gave us our initial definition of a process, said that the rock that reengineering has foundered on is simple: people. And Dr. Hammer, who came up with this whole process, later on said, I was reflecting my engineering background and was insufficiently appreciative of the human dimension. See, Dr. Hammer was a computer scientist by trade, and it seems like in developing reengineering practices, he was more interested and focused on solving the optimization problem and doing the math in the best possible way, and perhaps didn't consider the larger context and effect that work would have on all parties. So if there's nothing else you take away from your coursework today, I hope that it's this. And that is, yes, of course, hopefully our work on a day-to-day basis has value. And that means that it makes an impact in the world. And that impact is both positive and negative. However, that impact isn't evenly distributed amongst the world. And we need to make sure that we are considering the consequences of our actions that we're taking in our day-to-day development. Not only for users of our system, or people that are building it or managing it, not only for people that are aware of the output of our system, but for people that don't even know that our system exists, but are affected by what it does. We need to make sure that we're considering the voices and impact of our work on people that aren't in the room. And now with that somewhat weighty conclusion, I must draw your attention to the fact that we have completed our process management course. In fact, we have completed all of our coursework. And that means that there's only one thing left for us to do today. Welcome, everyone, to graduation. I'm honored to be your commencement speaker today. You know, some universities, they get celebrities or famous people in industry to come speak, and you're stuck with me. But in my time here, the thing I want to leave you with is that, us technologists and us business folks, we're not so different after all. We've all had plenty of opportunity to demonstrate that neither of us do a particular job at naming things. And while that recognition means that we should give each other some grace and understanding in how difficult it is, it also means that we should continue to push each other towards developing more inclusive, understandable, explanatory names that benefit all of us. We all rely on abstraction, whether it be framework features or different design patterns, or boxes and lines representing actual work done by actual people. And whether we choose to believe it or not, we all rely on external forces to help justify our decisions or validate our opinions. If you're interested in reviewing any of your coursework at any time, you can do so at kevinjmurphy.com/eng MBA. I threw a lot of terms at you. I threw a lot of concepts at you in a very short period of time. And at that site, you can find a written description and some references for further learning. Even if you're not interested in that, because this is a virtual graduation and folks aren't going to be walking across the stage and receiving their diploma, I encourage you to go there. You'll find a link there to a form that you can fill out. And after filling out that form, you can receive your own diploma. That form will ask you for your name and no other identifying information. Looking back, if I wanted to continue this university charade, I should have at least asked for an email or something. And then from now until the end of time, I could have continually emailed you asking you for money. But I don't have the energy for that. And let's just agree that it would be a great bit. And I'll have a good laugh here now. And appreciate not having more email in our inbox. You can take that diploma, you can print it out, you can put it on your fridge, send it to your parents. You can tweet a picture of it and send it to me and let me know the great time you had here at RailsConf University today. Congratulations on completing your coursework. Congratulations on becoming an alum at RailsConf University and receiving your engineering MBA.